Campaign for the White House now as the official Republican nominee. Where do things stand, and where do we go over the next 3.5 months? Let's talk about it with Matthew Continetti, editor of the Washington Free Beacon, Caitlin Huey-Burns, national political reporter for Real Clear Politics. We heard the speech last night. We heard him thanking the volunteers at some length just now. Caitlin, talk about the themes that Donald Trump is going to stress as he tries to win the White House.
Well, I would just like to point out the contrast of what we saw last night and what we're seeing here this morning. Donald Trump last night was very much on message, really tapping into the anxiety, frustration, insecurity among the electorate right now. He's hoping that not only shores up his base, but really, animates them in terms of coming out to the polls. It's unclear, however, whether that has some crossover appeal at this point. I do expect the polls to tighten because of that, however, and because of everything that's going on right now. But then you go to this speech this morning where he is relitigating the primary is really quite striking, getting off the messages and themes he was stressing last night and opening up some potentially new controversies.
Yeah, he seemed to be sort of relitigating is a good description of it, Matthew. He seemed to be reminding everybody of, hey, I started out, low in the polls and nobody gave me a chance, but here I am. Look, I'm the winner, and Ted Cruz, I don't need your endorsement or want your endorsement. Is that wise?
Well, it's Trump, and I think that the same can be said for last night's speech as well. Donald Trump isn't going to pivot to the general election. He threw out the campaign playbook that both parties have kind of adhered to for decades, and he's sticking with that approach. And so last night you kind of saw the more on message, as Caitlin said, or more negative version of Trump. There were very few jokes, very few ad-libs. This morning you saw classic Trump, in fact probably the side of Trump that appeals most to Republican voters, where he's kind of ad-libbing all over the place. He's charming, he's humorous, and then of course he spends more time talking about Ted Cruz and John Kasich than he does Hillary Clinton.
And is that enough to win the White House? I don't know. I guess, Caitlin, it has been an improbable ride for him. A lot of people, myself included, never thought he would become the Republican nominee, but here he is.
Right, and that's something that Donald Trump reminds us every day, practically. He talked about it last night. His surrogates have talked about how he emerged from the most crowded field in Republican history to become the nominee and hoping to make history again. But as you and I both know, a primary, of course, is very different from a general election. Donald Trump is going to have to expand his base if he wants to participate and compete in states like Ohio, where I am today, Pennsylvania, Colorado, and Florida, which have more diverse constituencies. There's a lot of traditionally candidates do try, as Matthew said, to pivot to the general and reach a broader audience. Donald Trump is making a very different bet. Of course, he is an unconventional candidate, but he thinks that his strategy and the way things have been going, the way he's been doing things, will be beneficial to him. We'll see if that pans out. We'll also look to see how Mike Pence kind of handles this new campaign. They'll be out together. Pence will be campaigning on his own as well.
He did make mention of some of Hillary Clinton's negatives in his speech last night. I want to play that for you now.
America is far less safe, and the world is far less stable than when Obama made the decision to put Hillary Clinton in charge of America's foreign policy. Her bad instincts and her bad judgment, something pointed out by Bernie Sanders, are what caused so many of the disasters unfolding today.
So there was an appeal, Matthew, to Sanders supporters in there. Is that a winning line? I mean, is that the kind of thing he can continue to hammer on in toward the general election?
Well, when you look at the polls, both Trump and Clinton have very high negative ratings, historically high negative ratings. And so Trump's best bet is to somehow make Hillary Clinton's negative ratings worse than his own. And so you kind of see that message come through very clearly last night, as well as the appeal to the Bernie voters, many of whom are motivated by trade. What Trump basically did in that speech last night, John, is say, everyone who feels left out of America in 2016, Everyone who feels like they haven't been paid attention to by President Obama, by corporations, by Wall Street, by multinational trade deals. I'm your guy. I'm the voice of the people. And I think that could be helpful in some of the Great Lakes states, like Michigan, like Ohio, like Pennsylvania, like New Hampshire, those kind of Rust Belt states where Trump is definitely targeting his message and which he has to win if he has any hope of getting into the White House.
It is going to be a fascinating race and a lot of fun for you two to cover. Thanks for coming in and sharing your thoughts this morning. Caitlin Huey Burns from Real Clear Politics, Matthew Continetti from the Free Beacon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with